You're here because you're on a path. You're unfolding. You're unfolding your heart's desires, your soul's mission. And I don't think that your soul's mission and your heart desires are disconnected. I think they're very, 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 very intertwined, if not the same thing. The dark night of the soul is gonna crack you open and allow you to finally put the structures in place, the identity in place for those desires to be chased. Going through the dark night of the soul puts you in touch with your femininity. It also puts you in touch with the wild woman that you are, who wants things unapologetically. You can't keep putting off becoming you. What's up, beautiful family? I have been going through the dark night of the soul for the past year. It's literally gonna crack you open and confront you with a side of yourself that you always knew existed, but now you've reached a point in life where there's no denying. This woman, this sensual, creative, playful, desireful part of yourself that has been shamed for so many years, she's ready to emerge. And she's just like, I will not be silenced anymore. That's what it feels like. It's like this rage, and it's confusing because your existing people pleaser, your existing archetype of I've having to like overwork and overextend myself to live a life based on everyone else's terms but my own. That part that made you feel seen, that made you feel validated, that made you feel like you were somebody in the opinion of others is just slowly not serving its purpose anymore. You're just like, I love you so much and you got me to where I am right now. But in order for me to take this next step in this chapter, in order for me to do the thing that I truly feel called to do, is going to require that you leave, that I do things differently, that I embrace a new power from within, and I stop trying to cater to everyone around me. It's not like I haven't been working on that for the last few years, and probably you too, you know? Like, there's probably layers to yourself. Like, if you do therapy, you know how healing is such a layered approach. You're just peeling those layers of the onion. Dark Night of the Soul is just like shadow work on steroids because it's literally like an identity of you is changing. It's not just like bits and parts that you're like shedding light on, but it's just like a whole reboot of your identity. Sometimes the dark night of the soul is like a little bit of a slower, wavy process. And sometimes it's like certain events in our life will just hit us, and then we're in these deep waters of transformation and we barely know how to swim. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for liking, subscribing. Thank you so much for sharing this with whomever you think could find this helpful, whoever's going through this process. So here we are. We're going to talk about it and why it can be the best thing that happens to you, my dear. A part of you is no longer serving you. You've reached the end of a chapter. Sometimes that's like a longer process and you go from one stage to another. You kind of like start to notice that things are changing, like your needs are changing. You want to start paying attention to your needs. You want to feel powerful in a different way, in a way that you are empowering yourself and you're not constantly feeling like you need to be empowered by others or validated by others or acknowledged by others. There's different emotions that can arise, and they're definitely different for everyone. They can be feelings of loneliness, depression, anger, over just like a sustained amount of time. For me, it really started when I moved to the US. And that's another thing. Like, it can be coming out of nowhere, or it can be kickstarted by, you know, mental health issues in general. Like, that can send you down and into an awakening, essentially. Dark Night of the Soul is part of your awakening. I moved to the US on the last day of the year 2021. I moved over here just to have a change in my life for a job. I knew that it was not my dream job, but I came here just for the experience of it. I was meeting people in LA. I was meeting people that were very different to me. They were just like showing me a new way of life, showing me that you can be in touch with your creative side, that there is space to be entrepreneurial, to not have things be figured out overnight. So that was kind of like a little introduction to how a new identity could arise within me. It'll feel like if there's something within you where you're like, oh, in another lifetime, I would be doing this, or I would be like, this is how I would live my life. And a year into my abroad experience here in Los Angeles, I just started noticing myself feeling like this job was just holding me. It just felt like an old life. I was like, wow, I lost meaning in life. What I wanted on the inside was clashing with what I was pursuing on the outside. That's where you're at in life, where you're like, oh my God, this just feels like an outdated version of myself, and I'm living in an outdated version of myself, and something has to change. Then you're just going to notice how stuff just really starts to piss you off, and you're not willing to tolerate it anymore. The dark night of the soul is going to crack you open and allow you to finally put the structures in place, the identity in place for those desires to be chased. If you have those desires, then it's your duty to go after them. And this is why the dark night of the soul can put you in touch with your feminine energy so much, because inherently, as women, we have been suppressed. We have been taught to sacrifice our self expression to ensure harmony and to submit to what people needed, essentially to put other people's needs before our own. I say that so confidently because, if you look in the past, like how many women in your family have actually pursued their dreams, have actually been able to put themselves first instead of building a family? In the rarest circumstances, are the men the ones holding it down and building all of this so that you can go and chase your dreams? Like, it was just not possible. It was different times, right? But like now we know with like epigenetics, right? And I'm just going to read this part to you. But like we know how that kind of trauma, that kind of suppression is handed down through DNA. It's no wonder that that still resides within you and still needs to be freed. I truly believe that purpose in life is to overcome my fear so that I can free my soul from going after what it truly desires. And I'm not stuck in that I need to please everybody else first and my thing comes last. If that resonates with you, then yeah, that's probably your purpose, to learn how to undo all of that trauma. And now I'm like, I'm literally going to look for this epigenetics parts that I was telling you about. Trauma is handed down from your mom, from your grandma to your mom, from your mom to you. Trauma can leave a chemical mark on a person's genes, which can be passed down to future generations. This mark doesn't cause a genetic mutation, but it does alter the mechanism by which the gene is expressed. This alteration is not genetic, but epigenetic. The dark night of the soul is literally like shadow work, but on steroids. And the reason why it's so freaking hard is because you don't really know what's next. You're just like, oh my God, I'm going through so much change. Like my identity is transforming. I can't really relate to people from my past life, in a sense. Like people know my past ego, my past self, and all of that is somehow changing. I don't really know how to talk about it. And so I can't relate with people like the way I used to. But because you haven't really figured it out yet, your new you, because that is essentially still being birthed. Like when a snake is shedding its skin, like that shedding process, like the new is only just arising. And sometimes you can't even see it yet. Before the butterfly becomes a butterfly, it's mush. And that's what the dark night of the soul is. Everything feels confusing. You feel alone. You feel depressed. You lack in purpose. Some days you're just like, oh, okay, no, I think I understand. Like I'm letting go of this thing. You think you're like figuring it out. And then the next day you're just like, no, I can't cope with anything anymore. And that's okay, because this is such a gift for you to slow down and really connect with your femininity. Your femininity is the depths of your emotion, the darkness. It's receiving downloads, it's receiving information, it's allowing yourself to feel all of that, allowing yourself to slow down, to just take it all in. and to sit with it. You know, if it hadn't been for this move out here to the US, if it hadn't been for all this exposure to all of these different people showing me in how many ways I was living in disalignment with my heart and what I wanted, I was just like, thank God. Thank God this old shit is dissolving. I can't keep putting off becoming me. You can't keep putting off becoming you. Like, I think that's why so many of us are so like desperately looking for love. Like, this relationship is supposed to feed me. This relationship is supposed to make me feel ecstatic. What if your life could feel ecstatic? What if your life could feel ecstatic because you allowed yourself and gave yourself permission to go after the things you deeply, deeply desired? And we don't do that because we're the feminine, the woman is so often shamed. Like, I was having this conversation with Adam the other day, and he's like, I don't understand. It was about this football player, and this football player had this amazing wife, right? She takes all of the social boxes, if you wish, and he cheated on her with this other woman. And she's just, you know, what society would call cheap looking and just like, well, what society would probably call a whore, you know? If you think about it, every man wants to marry the saint, the good girl that they can introduce to their parents. She cooks and she cleans and she looks amazing and she carries herself well. Oh, she's also really well educated. She has a great job. People love her. She's never mad. She's never angry. She never disagrees with you. But it's like, why do we do that? Why do we shame the whores? Because they're desirable. They're in touch with their sexuality. They're going after, like, a wild woman is a dangerous woman, unpredictable, right? She's not going to be submissive to man's needs and wants, and she's not going to be a good girl. No, she's going to go out there, she's going to speak her mind. She's going to wear and dress what she wants because she wants to feel good about herself. It's a threat to people if they don't feel safe in who they are, in their own identity, and they don't feel grounded within who they are. There's just like so much stigma around what a woman is supposed to be that we start to deny ourselves of our desires, because a woman who says, no, I don't want to pursue the idea you just had, and I don't think your idea is great. I want to do this. This is my career choice. I'm not going to do the thing that you think is the right thing to do. You know, it's like, okay for man to go after his desires and his dreams, but for women to stand up for herself, to go after what she wants, that's just like, oh, I mean, yeah, maybe you shouldn't. Like, to me, I was gaslighted in a previous relationship. I was like, "Oh, I wanna be, like, helping companies bring their stories to life." This was in 2017, I'll never forget it, and he was like, "You're so much more than that. That's just, like, that's not a real thing. Like, you're so much more than that. All the girls go into communication and storytelling and do that stuff, but, like, the real business, like, where we really do business, that's sales. You should go into sales." And, you know, my ex-partner said that to me. My managers have said that to me. They've all been men. I mean, we're all suppressed in different ways, but I think as women, we're especially suppressed in terms of like actually going after the things that we desire unapologetically. People love an apologetic woman. Oh my God, a pleaser, because a woman is supposed to be nurturing and caring and all of these things. Well, guess what? We're changing the rules of the game. A woman can be multi freaking faceted. Like, I'm not saying she's not nurturing, but I'm also saying she's like self defined. Like, you define who you are, you define where you want to go. And in order for you to know where you want to go, you have to be in touch with those desires. That's why dance has transformed me so much, because like I used to attend dance classes and my dance teacher would be like, Helena, you need to seduce the audience. And I was like, seduce? And there was so much shame around that. There was so much shame even around the word seduction. Like, I don't want to be seductive. Seductive in business, like, if you're not careful, you wear too many dresses and you get a promotion, you know what people are going to be talking about. They're not going to be talking about your skill sets. I'm going to tell you that. So, of course, seduction, there's so much shame around that. Helena, you need to dance bigger. Helena, you need to like take up more space. And all of these things in dance, I was like, whoa, I have so much shame around this. The other day, this guy said something and it blew my freaking mind and read it to you because I had to take notes because I was like, yes. He was coaching this girl to attract more money into her life and essentially bigger opportunities into her life. He broke it down to her and how attracting more opportunities and more money is linked to your desires. He said, to have more money, you need inspired action. To have inspired action, you need to be unleashed in your expression. To have unleashed expression, you need to feel safe within your body that you can actually express that, right? Where you're not worrying about being judged or being called out for being like a selfish woman, for going after your desires. And to feel safe within your body, you have to feel safe with your desires. You have to liberate yourself in your desires. Safety being not something that happens in your mind, but it happens in your body. Then the easiest way to find where you don't feel safe is start observing yourself where you feel shame. Like, honestly, sexual intercourse is like a huge one. Do you shame yourself? Do you shame your stomach? What are you paying attention to? You know, is it very performative and you're still putting on a show to be that sexy woman? Those things are just so freaking ingrained in us. Like, it took me years to not be performative in bed, right? And to actually be in touch with, like, what do I actually want? And how can I actually receive that? How can I feel good about receiving pleasure? What's happening to my body right now, and that it feels good and that it's okay to feel good about pleasure. You know, it's all of these things I'm literally working on right now, still with my therapist, allowing myself and giving myself the permission to rest because I am worthy of feeling good and feeling rested. So I really encourage you, when you're going through this dark night of the soul, start to pay attention to where you're not able to receive pleasure or where you have to work to receive pleasure. You have to perform. You have to be perfect to receive pleasure, and start connecting with your body. Like, if you're not in a relationship, like, it doesn't have to be through sex. I understand, like, that's such a, I don't know, it makes a lot of people feel uncomfortable. But like, if you're going to yoga, or you're doing breathwork sessions, or start to dance, even like, it doesn't have to be a class, just with yourself, like, notice how you feel. Do you feel embarrassed to be intimate with yourself? Do you feel embarrassed to dance? Do you feel like, where is that coming from? Like, you can drop into a journaling session and just start like sitting with it. Because honestly, a dark night of soul is really just like going within and sitting with the experience that is arising. To feel is truly to heal. Because when we feel into things and we're giving it some airtime, we're giving it the time of the day, it creates new space. For that newness to arise, that new identity to emerge, it has to take space somewhere. And it can't be birthing if you're still clinging and holding on to these old versions of yourself, these old beliefs, these old ways of being, because you're not grieving your loss, So lean into all of that messiness that is coming up, right? That mushiness before you become a butterfly, like, lean into it, all of the things, like, experience it in your body. And I highly encourage that you start to get in touch and start to work with your body somatically. A lot of people think it's like funny, but like, if you think about it, stress is not in your head, it's in your body. Trauma is not in your head, it's in your body, it's stored in your body. So the way you're going to be able to release it is through the body as well. And you need to be able to access it. For me personally, dance has been transformative. I'm still not 100% comfortable in front of the camera. Like, looking super seductive into the camera and just feeling good about myself and feeling good about my femininity and just being like, yeah, world, here I am. And I have these curves and I feel amazing and I'm allowed to feel amazing. And you're going to watch me feel amazing. Going through the dark night of the soul puts you in touch with your femininity. It also puts you in touch with just the wild woman that you are, who wants things unapologetically. The minute you start going after the things you want, the minute you start giving yourself the permission to do the things that you truly desire without feeling like you have to answer to anyone other than yourself, just because the freaking love of it, then you're just going to start noticing its transformative effects on you. I am learning how to honor my needs, to honor my desires, and I'm going to take it day by day. Practice the art of saying, I don't know, and feeling at ease with that. Not letting everything around you, that chaos, get in your head. And I'm telling you again, the medicine to you being grounded is you being grounded in the not knowing. The minute you sit with yourself and you process all of these emotions that are arising because you don't know what's next. And so when you feel more grounded in that process, because you're giving yourself the space and the time to feel into all of these emotions, to get to know your new identity, right? The other one was, I don't know, 20 years in the making. Like, you're not going to get to know your new identity overnight. So take your time with it. Being in our feminine power is being able to slow down, not being hurried, being on our own timeline. We are on our own timeline, honoring our desires, honoring our needs, not being hurried by anyone, not being forced by anyone. It's just me and the universe. We're co creating, we're figuring it out. The only thing I have to manage and the only thing that you have to manage is the energy right now. And that's when you can also tap into the place of abundance, right? That's also when you're like, oh, I don't have to live in a scarcity mindset. Like, oh my God, I don't know what's next. I don't know what's next. Like, that's okay. We don't have to have it all figured out right now. We're going through this huge transition, huge transformation. Get to know this new identity that is arising. Who is she? What does she want? What does she believe in? What does she feel drawn to? It was the best experience for me to take some time off and away from just like the corporate world, the startup world, because I was so still ingrained with like, oh my God, this is the expectation for me to find another job. Oh my God, I'm not going to have like this, like detaching yourself from the old. It's good to get space away from the old and just really soak in and sit with yourself. Get to know what turns you on from the inside. What's that desire that you've always wanted to go after? What are those dreams that lie dormant within you that you've never really gone after because you're so afraid of not pleasing others if you fail? And I'm telling you, when the more you sit with yourself, the more you're going to notice that it's not about others. It's about you. Even when I spend so much time away from the workforce, no one actually cares. No one actually cares about your career. No one actually cares about your old identity. No one actually cares. And so it's just like, what do I truly want out of this experience? And then when you start going after your desires, and you're going to start allowing yourself to want certain things and to lead life a certain way, and that you have these new values and that you have these new beliefs and that you have these new ways of seeing yourself and expressing yourself, people are going to do things and say things that are just that you're not going to accept anymore. Like, it's not going to be okay anymore. Like, you'll have new limits because you're not constantly extending yourself into everything and trying to be everything, but you're going to be you, and you're going to be more comfortable trying to just be you and not to please others. Well, guess what? When that happens, you're going to also realize that not everyone likes you. But since you're not trying to please everyone, you're going to have to learn how to navigate that in a new way. You're going to experience new limits that you have. It could be time limits, it could be physical limits, it could be emotional limits. And sometimes you're even getting angry. You're just going to like, how the audacity that they treat me like this, the audacity that they're expecting this of me, the audacity. And you're just going to sit there. And I encourage you to just like become an observer and just see how people, when you're no longer so like freaking invested in taking care of everything for everyone to be everything for everyone, and you're just like empowered within who you are and who you want to become, you're just going to notice how people's real faces will become really evident. You'll be like, oh, that's who you truly are. So, oh, interesting. Like, learning to say no, like, this is another thing you're going to have to learn when you're going through the dark night of the soul. But like, learning to say no, you can do it in a very calm, kind way. I mean, me personally, I didn't really learn how to set healthy boundaries. And so I really had to learn how to kindly say no. And the key to that, to saying no, is to not take the response and the reaction of people personally. But that requires that you get comfortable with discomfort. To recap, carve out time to sit with yourself. Also, what really helped me was to find that one person who believed in me and to listen to people who did the thing that I'd done that I was trying to do and trying to become. I literally had to distance myself from voices that were supportive in the past, but they just didn't feel supportive anymore. And that's okay. You can come back to them when you feel less fragile in your skin. That doesn't mean that you're completely shutting them off forever. It just means time out. And then get in touch with your body. Like, uncover the areas where you still hold on to so much shame. Like, where are you oppressing yourself? Where are you suppressing your desires? Where are you not acknowledging yourself in your femininity, in your power? Where are you still playing so small? And then whatever arises, like, carve out time to just sit with it, to feel into it, to cry, to let it go, to be confused. It's okay to not know. Like, whoever is not comfortable with your not knowing and your knows, like, they can go figure their shit out. Like, that's not your responsibility. We are done with that. We are now focusing on what we can do, the impact that we can have in our corner of the world. And that is how you are showing up and how you want to interact with the world, honoring your soul's mission and going after what's truly, truly yours. Like, that's what you're truly learning in the dark night of the soul, is like, how can you connect to the most recent software upgrade within your system and being safe with it, loving it, showing it compassion, nurturing it so that it can grow and flourish and blossom into that beautiful flower that you are destined to become. You're here because you're on a path. You're unfolding your heart's desires, your mission. And I don't think that your soul's mission and your heart desires are disconnected. I think they're very, 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 very intertwined, if not the same thing. We all want our partners to make us happy. It's why we cheat, right? What if the thing, the person that you were becoming, the things you were going after were so stimulating to you because you want them so badly? But if you deny yourself of what you want, of course, you're going to look for stimuli everywhere else. You want to feel inspired from within. Get in touch with your desires and let the dark night of the soul get you in touch with them. Thanks so much for tuning in. And until next time.